Moon Knight is an American television miniseries created by Jeremy Slater for the streaming service Disney+, based on the Marvel comics featuring the character of the same name. It is the sixth television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to be produced by Marvel Studios, sharing continuity with the films of the franchise. It follows Marc, Spector and Stephen Grant, two alters of the same man with a dissociative identity disorder, or DID, as they are drawn into a mystery involving Egyptian gods. Slater serves as head writer, with Mohamed Diab leading the directing team. Oscar Isaac stars as Marc Spector / Moon Knight and Stephen Grant and Mr. Knight, with Calamawy, F. Murray Abraham, and Ethan Hawke. The series was announced in August 2019, with Slater hired in November. Diab was hired to direct 4 episodes in October 2020, with directing duo Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead joining in January 2021 to direct the other 2 episodes. Isaac was confirmed to star at the time. He used different accents to differentiate between Spector's various identities. Filming took place in April to October 2021, primarily in Budapest, as well as in Jordan, Slovenia, and Atlanta, Georgia. Moon Knight premiered on March 30th, 2022, and ran for 6 episodes, concluding on May 4th. It is part of Phase 4 of the MCU. The characters include Oscar Isaac playing Marc Spector, Moon Knight, Stephen Grant, Mr. Knight, and Jake Lockley. He's a man with a dissociative identity disorder, whose identifiers are distinct characters and were differentiated in the script by their attitudes. Isaac chose to take this further by giving them different accents. He enjoyed being able to do something really nutty, and his portrayal included exploring Spector's complex mind. Embodying each of the personas was a technical challenge for Isaac that required a lot of energy. Initially, Isaac would film all the material for one character, then switch to the other. Once he got more comfortable and handled on both, it was easier for him to switch between the two, sometimes in the same moment. His brother Michael Benjamin Hernandez served as the body double, allowing Isaac to act against someone for scenes where both Marc and Stephen met. To prepare for the role, Isaac read Robert B. Oxham's book of Fractured Mind, which he called his Bible. His primary character, Marc Spector, is a Jewish-American mercenary who becomes the avatar for Egyptian moon god Khonshu. Isaac used his own American accent for Spector and leaned into his Chicago guy who's pushing people away for his portrayal of Spector, calling him a jerk. Executive producer Kevin Feige described Spector as a brutal action hero and said the series would not pull back from portraying the violence of the character. Then we have Stephen Grant, a mild-mannered British gift shop employee who becomes Mr. Knight, Grant's persona when he is in Khonshu's avatar. Isaac put on a London English accent for Grant that he suggested was intentionally bizarre and unconvincing. He was inspired by the accents of Jewish community living in Enfield, London, as well as an English comedic performance such as presenter-actor Carl Pilkington from the British travel comedy series An Idiot Abroad, and Peter Sellers. Isaac added that Grant does not have a great deal of social skills and is longing for connection. Grant has tension with Spector when the two personalities first become aware of each other. Mr. Knight uses Grant's knowledge of ancient Egypt to help get out of conflicts with wits and puzzle solving, which is in contrast to Spector's Moon Knight persona. Then we have Jake Lockley, who is the third, more ruthless alter. Lockley speaks in Spanish, with Isaac enjoying being able to bring that element of his own life to the role instead of just trying to pay service to some idea that was in the comics. Isaac noted that Lockley has something ominous about him and more control than Spector and Grant. Head writer Jeremy Slater believed it was unclear if Lockley had good intentions or not, only that he has a secret arrangement with Khonshu that Spector and Grant are unaware of, and it seems to be much more on board with his mission. Then we have Calamawy as Layla El-Faloui, or Scarlet Scarab, an archaeologist and adventurer who's Spector's wife and is aware he is Moon Knight. Lead director Mohamed Diab and his wife Sarah Goa were huge champions of the character, since she was how the series was representing Egypt. Calamawy described her character as someone with a lot of healing to do and needs to develop trust within herself. She drew inspiration from Middle Eastern women who have a very unassuming, soft strength to them, and she avoided Western actresses such as Angelina Jolie, who portrayed the Tomb Raider Lara Croft. Then we have Karim Hakim and F. Murray Abraham as Khonshu, the Egyptian moon god and outcast amongst the gods for waging a one-god war on perceived injustices, thus necessitating him to find and use his avatar Marc Spector. Slater called him an imperious sort of snotty and vengeful deity who's prone to temper tantrums and is dealing with his own insecurities, adding he was more interested in a version of the character that had his own moral failings and weaknesses rather than one who was always right and impervious to mistakes. Then we have Ethan Hawke as Arthur Harrow, a religious zealot and cult leader associated with the Egyptian goddess Ammit, looking to exact justice and judgment based on future crimes. Harrow was Khonshu's previous avatar before Spector. Hawke worked in tandem with Isaac to conceive Harrow as an opposite to Spector, wanting to perform inverse actions or emotions to him. and saw Harrow as a mix between a monk and a doctor. He was inspired for his performance by the cult leader David Koresh, Cuban President Fidel Castro, and the Dalai Lama, as well as questioning what if Apple Incorporated co-founder Steve Jobs was a bad guy. Psychiatrist Carl Jung was also an inspiration, particularly when Hawke portrays the psychiatric doctor version of Harrow. Now, I found myself really enjoying this show more than I thought I would. I almost didn't feel like this was an MCU show. It almost felt more of a standalone show intertwined with Egypt mythology. Now, the Egyptology that plays out throughout the show I most enjoyed, and seeing and learning more about the likes of Khonshu, the Egyptian moon god, and Emmet, the devourer of the dead, was plain fascinating and just thoroughly enjoyable. Also, seeing Egypt as the backdrop and seeing the wonderful Great Pyramids of Giza again on our screens was outstanding, as they always lend their gravitas to any scene. Now, I personally not heard of the character of Moon Knight prior to the series, and I found the character most fascinating. I particularly enjoyed episode 5, which gives you more of a backstory to why Marc has become like he has and developed all these multiple personalities. Oscar Isaac is absolutely magnificent and carries the show on his back. He's particularly good as Marc Spector, the tough mercenary type who's no nonsense, but I really feel it's his performance as Stephen Grant, the mild-mannered English shop employee, who is a complete and utter contrast to Marc. It's here where Oscar really stands out in his performance, as he plays these two different characters so perfectly that you almost believe they are two different people. I love watching him argue with himself. It's so hilarious at times, and so well done, and eventually, like I said, the two characters really become their own people. I also enjoyed May Calamawy as Layla, and I'm so glad that they cast an actually Egyptian actress in the role, rather than using the occasional whitewashing. It was also nice hearing the voice of F. Murray Abraham again, a very underrated actor in his career, and it's nice to see the 82-year-old getting some work again, as his pitch-perfect, beautiful, resonating voice plays perfectly as Khonshu. Ethan Hawke is superb as the main antagonist here, Arthur Harrow, and he brings a credence and a subtlety to this coldish leader that is unnerving and makes for an excellent antagonist throughout the show. The show can be somewhat confusing at times, and it doesn't really play out like a normal superhero MCU show. For me, it's more of a character study and more of a look at a man that's struggling with this personality disorder and learning about his past, as well as learning about Egyptology and how it all plays within this greater story. I mean, the actual character of Moon Knight is really barely on screen, and if you're expecting non-stop action, well, this one really won't be for you. This is much more a cerebral MCU show. I'll be interested to see where they take the character in future and what more personalities Oscar Isaac can portray as he really sinks his teeth into this fantastic role. This character is really a thespian's dream role, as you get the chance to really show off your acting range, and Isaac can certainly do that. Moon Knight gets an 8 out of 10.